We live in a changing world. Transnational media, coupled with the internet and the technologies associated with it, such as email, social media, video and music sharing, have brought about hitherto unprecedented ease of communication. In addition, as these technologies develop, they become cheaper and more widely disseminated. Where a decade ago, just 16% of the world's population had access to the internet, we now live in a world in which over 40% of the globe has access to the World Wide Web. This number is increasing daily. With services such as internet.org on the rise, this level of connectivity could soon increase even further, although concerns exist to the legitimacy of these organizations' aims and methods. Nonetheless, the planet's population is now more connected than ever before. The issue this video will address shall be the effect this connectivity could have on traditional notions of national identity and a state/nation-based system of governance. Will the cosmopolitan theory succeed, relegating the state system that has been a core component of human civilization in some form or another for over 10,000 years to the history books? Could the ready availability of information and cultural exchange break down the borders and traditional identities that have defined assemblies of people for thousands of years? Or will it never gain momentum? Will there be a reactionary opposition movement, as is so often the case with ideological struggles? Is the idea of a global citizen impossible? But first, stepping back, what is a state? In modern times, a state can be defined as an organized political community living under a single system of government. A nation-state expands this concept to define the group of people as sharing not only a legal and political system, but also a cultural and ethical identity. Essentially, it encompasses the idea of a national identity based upon shared historical and cultural experience. States have tended to appear throughout human history whenever agriculture and writing, or some equivalent form of static communication, do. The former rooted groups of people to one place, and the latter allowed for the easy distribution of information amongst large groups of people. Once these people are established in a single area and subject to the same laws as one another, they begin to share their experiences and opinions with one another, beginning the formation of a nation-state. So from this we can draw the conclusion that when groups of people gather together and share experiences, they can develop a bond, a kind of shared identity. For the purpose of this video, we are talking about national identity, but for further proof, look at almost any group of people: sports fans, armed forces, groups of friends, even prison gangs. They all develop their own identity based off their shared experiences and passions. Contemporary society is dominated by states. They govern the lives of their citizens and interact with one another on the global stage, either directly or through conclaves such as the United Nations. More localized organizations, such as the European Union, exist, and are generally more functional than their global counterparts. Despite this, no attempt at a global system of government has ever been seriously considered. But what does this all have to do with transnational media? This video is debating whether the newfound connectivity and spread of media and content has the potential to, over a long period of time, generate the kind of international communal identity, similar to that of national identity, but on a larger scale. This is by no means an outlandish concept. Indeed, the idea of spreading one's culture via transnational media has become government policy for a number of countries, including the United States, China, Russia, and India, to name but a few. The methods utilized have varied wildly, from the production of entertainment to the manipulation of news and advertising. In general, however, these programs are initiated with the goal of building what is known as soft power. The term, first coined by Joseph Nye in 1990, describes the ability to attract or co-opt rather than coerce as a means of persuasion. The term has since evolved to describe the means that countries export their culture and media with the indirect effect of generating goodwill. Though countries like the USA have been incredibly successful exporting their culture and media, this does not necessarily translate as fluidly to direct political influence as government policymakers might wish. Winning the hearts and minds seems to be the effect, rather than outright support. In spite of this, the success of soft power initiatives provides proof of concept for the success of spreading culture and experiences across borders. So could the idea of a global citizen, and by extension global government, ever be a reality? One not restrained by traditional borders and allegiances, who identifies with a new international culture. To speculate, we must examine microcosmic examples of such communities. Internet sites, such as Reddit and NeoGAF, have developed as both a form of transnational media and international communities. User-generated and promoted content via a voting system ensures that the community regulates what rises to the top of the site. Comments and discussion have created a kind of history that exists apart from the day-to-day content present on the site. They have the potential to form a kind of digital version of the nation-forming process I discussed earlier. They create and perpetuate their own unique culture. What makes this an argument for the potential of a global citizenship is the fact that these users come from all over the world and are able to find commonality despite their differences. However, realistically, if there is to be a global citizenry, there must also be a global government. There are numerous problems with this idea, the most glaring of which is the simple fact that an enormous organization would be unable to adequately manage the day-to-day minutiae of its various regions. An example does exist of successful implementation of transnational governments, however, and it can be found in the European Union. The Union consists of 28 countries grouped together for mutual political and economic gain. The EU has managed to avoid many of the problems that plague larger coalitions of nations, such as unenforceable laws, by providing economic incentives to remain in the Union. As such, member states are willing to comply with EU courts and laws in order to reap the economic benefits of membership, such as relaxed trade and tax restrictions. Although the concept of a global citizen is promising, the realities of the world make it an unlikely eventuality, even if transnational media can generate enough cultural commonality. Perhaps the largest obstacle faced is the global disparity of wealth, with just under half the world's population living below the poverty line. Although the internet is now available to more people than ever before, it is still unavailable to many more. This renders much of the potential for transnational media to influence broader audiences as moot. In addition, issues such as language barriers present another obstacle. Much of the internet is slanted towards English-speaking audiences, with URLs only recently allowing for non-Latin-based characters. It is difficult to claim an international community exists when so much of it is geared towards a particular demographic, in this case English speakers. Ultimately, I believe that even if transnational media can create a unified experience that enough of the world's population can relate to, the inherent obstacles presented by the state system means that the nation-state will continue to dominate the world political scene.